Good morning, art historians. Today's video is about an important document that we will use throughout the entire school year. It's called a 9-blocks matrices or a 9-blocks matrix. And the reason for it is that its job is to help you do an analysis of one work really in depth for each one of our units or mini units. The 9-block helps you focus your attention on a particular work, with the thought being that if you're taking the AP exam, you have a really solid understanding of one work per unit. But it's also good and on level in that it helps you focus your instruction and make sure that you're looking at the pieces that need to be examined for just the end of unit test. So I'm going to walk you through how to get to and how to use your 9-block. And so I'm in student view on my MCPS classroom, which many of your teachers and I might sometimes slip up and call Canvas because that's the company that runs this. This setup is Canvas. So my MCPS classroom and Canvas are the same thing. So you're going to go to modules because with me, modules is where everything lives. We've done this. We talked about this, we've done this, we're working our way down through the modules, and this is where we are here. We're at our 9-block. Okay. And so what you're gonna do is, I'm gonna talk about this one first. I'm gonna open the 9-block organizer reference, okay? This is the one where it tells you what you're doing. And it has 9 blocks, and clearly, and something goes in each one of them. So this is an introduction to this this document. So you're going to pick one image from each of our units. And we talked a little bit about what those units are. We'll start with prehistory, then we will go to ancient Mediterranean. And within ancient Mediterranean, there are 4 units. So Near East and Egypt and Greece and Rome. And so for each one of those, you will pick an item that you particularly liked or you thought was particularly fascinating or you believe that you could write a lot about. That was a yawn on this early Tuesday morning. And you're going to fill this in. So, artist, who made it? Okay, that's what goes there. Title, what is the title of the work? Okay, media, we talked about that in our last video. What is it made of? And date, this can be for something that is modern, an exact date in which it was made. You know, Van Gogh painted wheat fields with crows in 1890. Or it can be the Venus of Willendorf is from between 28,000 and 25,000 BCE. So it's like that. Size, how big is it? Or if it's a thing, where is it located? Because you could go down through all of this and it could be a building and you might need to say where it's located. So this is sort of, you know, depending on where you're going. And what item you're using. So we're going to just sort of come around and sort of look at some of these things. So formal analysis, that's looking at those elements and principle, balance, unity, pattern, movement, shape, value, form, that whole list that we did on our first video. And which elements of art or principles of design are most important. So if you're looking at, you know, the statue of David, which is 17 feet tall, proportion is really important there. It's giant. Right? Scale is really, really important. If you're doing something like Matisse did a beautiful painting of people dancing, movement is one of the design principles, and you might want to talk about that. Analyze the composition and design. If you're dealing with a sculpture, is it additive where you add things to it? Or is it subtractive where you start with a block of marble or a block of stone and you subtract away from it? And what about perspective? Is it in the correct perspective? Is it an odd perspective? When you're dealing with an artist like Cezanne, which we will get to, he uses what is often called a tilted perspective. It's like you took a table and instead of it being straight in front of you, you tilted the back legs up like 3 or 4 inches so that you can see the whole table when you're looking at it from the side. So that's what we're talking about when we deal with perspective. And I will help you with these as we get further in. We'll do the first one together. So don't stress out. Style and process. How was it made? Okay. This is when you talk about what the materials were. Okay. So yes, if it was a sculpture, out of marble, but you also want to talk about, it has fine detail, or it doesn't have a lot of detail. What is the style of the art or architecture? As we get away from really old stuff, we'll begin to figure out that each sort of movement or time has a style. The Greeks, for instance, there's archaic Greek, there's Hellenistic Greek, there's classical Greek. So even within Greek stuff, there's different time periods. But you also probably know things like there's Impressionism, or there's modern, so we have those things. Describe the mark making or use of form. If we're talking about paintings, are we talking about wide brush strokes, fast brush strokes, detailed brush strokes? If we're talking about buildings, are we talking about, beautiful, what is called finished marble, which is, where the stone is nice and smooth? Or are we dealing with what is called rusticated stone, where the stone looks like it just came out of the ground? That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. The degree of realism or abstraction. It's incredibly realistic, or it's barely identifiable as a dog or a person or a mountain or whatever. So that's what you're looking at there. Concept, intent, purpose. What is the idea of the work? It is a picture of the Virgin Mary holding the baby Jesus. What function does it have? Its job is to make people contemplative, to think about Mary, to think about, Jesus. That's where our religious pieces go. What is the function? Its job is to help you think about your religion, or think about your God, and that's whether that's Christianity or Judaism or Islam or Buddhism or Hindu. A religious piece the function is to be contemplative or meditative. How does the context, what's going on in the world, inform the concept? How does what's happening around the world influence what the person is painting? And that we're going to deal a lot with when there's really a situation where a country or a civilization is in upheaval. And then, why was it made? Is it utilitarian? It's made for a specific purpose, that it was necessary, like a bridge. Okay. Is it personal? Was it just the artist's way of expressing their own feelings? Was it commissioned? Did someone buy or pay for a particular work? So now that we've talked about this, we're going to come back over to context. And yes, I did them out of order, but I think context needs to think about a lot of these things. Context. What historical events or movements are influencing the artist? If you're in the middle of a civil war, that's going to change the way you make your art. If you are in the middle of a famine, that's going to change the way that you make your art. If your country is currently led by a dictatorship, that's going to influence what you try to accomplish. And we're going to see all of those things. Think about artwork that was made during the French Revolution. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. What are the cultural influences? When you're dealing with like Spanish artwork, yes, you have a European influence, but in southern Spain, you also have an African influence because of the Moors that came up from Africa, through Gibraltar and into southern Spain. So we're talking about cultures, not only Catholic European cultures, but also Muslim African cultures. And so that's the stuff that we're talking about. How does where and when the work is made affect the style, subject, or purpose? And that's, again, that question. Where are you? What is going on? And how does that influence you? And finally, why was the work made? Many of the artworks that we will study that come from these major historical events are a way to encourage people to think about what's going on in the world. There were many paintings made in England as pieces against slavery. That was what was happening. And artists began to be abolitionists in England and began to paint subjects that would hopefully influence the monarchy to stop with slavery. So these are just some examples. This is the easiest part: subject, content. It's literally what you see in the work. It's a picture of a woman holding a baby. Okay, That's the important part. Explain symbols or key icons. Okay, it's a woman holding a baby, but she has a crown on her head. Ooh, maybe that means that she's super important. Or symbols. The baby is making a particular gesture with his fingers, and he has a crown over his head. And many of the medieval paintings of the Virgin Mary and the infant Christ have some of the symbolism in the shapes of their hands, the gestures they're making with their hands, and things like that. What is the main focus? There's these wonderful paintings of Van Gogh that are of outside and wheat fields and things like that. And what is the main focus? Many of the focus of these pieces are these giant cypress trees that, while everything else seems very light and airy, these cypress trees are very big and dominating in the picture. And that's important. How does the background or setting affect the work? What do you see in the background versus what you see in the foreground? And do those things match up? Okay. When it comes to looking at art, this context is, for me, the most important thing. And the second most important thing is this: evidence of innovation and convention. Innovation is what's new. It's innovative. It's new. Convention is what's conventional, what has been done, what we've always done. So, is this work considered standard for the current time and culture? Is it conventional? What about it is conventional? How can you look at a piece and say, oh, that's definitely from Hellenistic Greece, or, oh, that's definitely Renaissance Italy? What is it about it that is conventional? But then you also need to think about, what about the work is unique or new or different or against the standard or something that's completely out there? And that's when we start getting into, artists like our Impressionists, who stopped painting things that look exactly like what they look like. It's when you get into, when there is an introduction of perspective, and instead of everything seeming very flat in medieval pieces, in the Renaissance pieces, there's actually perspective, and people look like people and not like practically a stick drawing. How does the innovation change the society or influence for future work? The artwork of the Impressionists of the mid to late 1800s absolutely influenced all of the work in the early 1900s. And that's what you're looking at. What are they doing new that's making people do different things? So when you're trying to complete this, know that this one here, context and influences, and this one here, evidence of innovation and convention, are super, super, super important. Then we get into this: themes, connections, other notes. Themes is what you're talking about when you even talk about literature. What is the theme of this book? Oh, the theme of The Great Gatsby is, isolation, or the theme of, A Tale of Two Cities is, loyalty, or the theme of, The Lord of the Flies is, the brutality of man, or something like that. So you can do that same thing with artwork. What is the theme of a piece of artwork? If you're looking at a Van Gogh, a late Van Gogh, 1890, right before his death, the theme of a lot of those is isolation and loneliness and sadness, because that's where he was at that time. If you're looking at Matisse, sort of middle of career Matisse, when he was having so much fun and exploring all these different mediums and painting with paper and making collages and using scissors, and like the theme of that is typically joy. And so that's what you're looking for. How does what the theme is help you identify the culture and then make connection to the culture or other cultures? And this is where you also put, and this is really important, other notes. This is where you put something where you're like, I really need to remember this about this piece. And that's where, this goes. I'm not sure. I have this great piece of information that Ms. Horman told me about this particular piece, but I'm not really sure where that goes. It can go in this box. Then it says place image here. So this is where you draw your own sample, your own version of this piece. Okay. And I know for many of you who may not be artists, this is an incredibly stressful box. So let me just start with, this is not graded on your artistic ability. This is graded on, can I look at it and basically figure out like what you're trying to do? And why do I make you do this? Because the College Board has said, and it's actually true, I've tracked this, the kids that actually take the time to do this square have a tendency to do better on the exam just because they're putting forth that effort and they're connecting the artistic part of their brain with the analytical part of their brain. It's apparently very good for you to do this. So this is here and will be on the module for you to review at any time that you do a 9 block. Okay. I'm going to go back to the module because I'm going to show you, this one. We talked a little bit in another video about the Venus of Willendorf, that oldest human form. And in case you don't remember what she looks like, we're going to go over here. We're going to type in Venus of Willendorf. And remember, we decided that we didn't want to call her the Venus of Willendorf because we want to call her the woman of Willendorf. So we talked about her. We looked at her in another video. There she is. There's our Venus of Willendorf. Okay. Here's our beautiful first example of human form that exists in the world, the oldest example of the human form. All right. So we're going to come back here. Artist, question mark. Wait, you didn't put anything there. Correct, because we don't actually know who did it. And we can't even identify a particular group of people. Okay. Maybe if we were, in Africa, we could assign it to a tribe. We know that it's the Congo people or the Luba people, or we could assign it to a group of people, but we don't even have that for this. Title, Venus of Willendorf. You could also put woman of Willendorf. What is she made of? Limestone. What is her date? Approximately 28,000 BCE. How big is she? She's approximately 4 inches long, and she was found in Austria. So let's go around. What formal elements? Well, we have organic forms, things that sort of are round and curly, which we have texture in her hair, and we definitely have proportion. Her bodily parts are much larger than they need to be, but in proportion, she is much smaller than a human form to make her portable. Okay. How is she made? Well, she's made from carving. She's not added. Things are not added to make her. She's subtractive. And she's meant to be seen in the round. You can look all the way around her, the front and the back. Okay. Subject content. What is she? Okay. It's a woman. It's a fertile woman. Obvious reproductive features. No specific face. So she's universal. Context or influences. Okay. This was obviously a time when fertility was really important. And so there's a focus on that. Small size means that it's portable. The limestone was not indigenous to the area. So this is that context. We know that she was moved. We know that she was part of a nomadic tribe. And because she doesn't have a face, she's representative. Now, this is a way for me to make it easier for you. Evidence of innovation and convention. Convention, how is she conventional? Just put a C. We've seen human forms drawn on walls. This is the first 3-dimensional human form. How is she innovative? Because she is the first human form. Themes, definitely fertility, definitely the human form. Okay, those are our themes. Connections are similar to what does she look like? This will be blank for a little bit, and that's okay. So if this is my little box, I'm going to go with a round square here. A round circle here to be her head. I'm going to make the little circles and realize I'm doing this with a pen. Okay. On a thing, I'm going to give her sort of a big body. Oof. It's really hard to draw with this. And bring her down to sort of her big hips and then her little legs. I'm going to make sure that I give her a division of 2 legs. I'm going to make sure I give her very enormous breasts because fertility is really important. I'm going to make sure that I give her a belly button. Again, fertility is really important. And I'm even going to make sure that in addition to her 2 legs, that I also, please excuse me, point out that she has a clear female genitalia. Okay. Ms. Horman, you're an art teacher. That's terrible. Yeah, I'm drawing this with my mouse. Would you get full credit for that? You absolutely would, because you've done what I've asked you to do. And that is clearly the Venus of Willendorf. I can look at that as I'm flipping through your pages. And before I even look at anything you've written, I would look at that picture and go, oh, that's the Venus of Willendorf. It's not hard to look at that. Okay. All right. I'm going to erase that so I can move on to my next thing. Let's get rid of her because she's struggling a little bit. All right. I'm going to go back to clicking, go back to my module here. And it's going to go really slow because the internet is super slow today. I'm not really sure why. And I'm going to show you this one. It says 9-block grace. And the reason that it says 9-block grace is because I tried to get my 9-block early on in my career of teaching this to get all my blocks to line up and to make everything look the way that I wanted. And I was trying to import information. And one of my students just made this one for me, and it's perfect. And I love it. And so I leave her name on it because I want to always give her credit for creating this one for me. So then you see that this is a doc. It's a Word doc. So you can really download this and type into it, type wherever you want, or you can print it out and handwrite it. It doesn't matter. So it's available to you here for you to use in either way. And so as we look at our modules, now when we're looking at the videos that we have, that I have gone over with you, you'll see that we've made our way through this, we've made our way through this, we've made our way through this, and we've even made our way through here. Okay, so we're all caught up in like sort of background information. I will do this one on a future video, and then you'll be able to look at all of our prehistory videos. So look for the next video, which will be what is it and your learning objectives, and we'll talk about that later.